some odd physical locations, discrete physical locations here in Boston. As you likely know from some of the RFI information, we have a campus in Spain, Valencia, and a fairly distributed workforce in general, especially on days like today when Mother Nature and the Boston's MBTA service are conspiring against us in potentially equal amounts.
Yeah, it's been miserable for you folks in the city. I'm right in Central Mass. So, but my youngest son actually works with the special crime scene guys with the transit police. So he's been involved with, this whole debacle with the snow. And
thank you for inviting us to talk with you about your RFI today. As you can imagine, I want to hear from you guys in terms of what you're thinking about. I read your RFI. We responded to your request for information. I'm pleased that brought us to a meeting together. But I definitely want to hear a little bit more. I want to hear about some of the hot buttons, Giles. I want to hear, from Elaine and Bruce and Greg, what are some of the things that you guys really want in terms of, I understand your 2 boardrooms. But outside of that application, are there some other applications that build into that would enhance things at Berklee to make life a little bit better from a communication standpoint? Or do you really want to stick to just the 2 locations and video conferencing systems for the 2 with telepresence? So I do want to hear a little bit more about the RFI. I'll give you a brief overview on HB as to who we are. I'll keep that brief for you, but I think it's important so that you know in particular what type of partner you're talking with. I'll take you through some of our proposition. So when I responded to your RFI, I gave some thought around some of the most logical ways to deploy telepresence in your environment, and I'll give you some background on that and what drove our proposition. And I'll talk with you about Life-Size Icon and Life-Size Cloud, which is the solutions design that we selected to respond to your RFI. And then maybe we could wrap things up and talk about what's next. So we've introduced ourselves. Maybe I could just take 5 minutes, 3 minutes, and talk with you about HB Communications. Are you guys familiar with our company? Have you ever heard of HB Communications?
We buy our Extron gear from you, and I know Greg's had you do some implementation of his AV design in his classroom.
Super.
You've been around a long time, haven't you?
We have, Elaine. So our company has been in business for 70 years, literally 70 years. And the original owner of our company is still alive, and he still comes to work. He's 98 years old. He's a World War II veteran, Mackie Barron, but really interesting gentleman, and we're really proud of our background and who we've come from. But Mackie Barron started in the educational business. So he started servicing large schools, universities, providing audiovisual services back in the late 40s, early 50s. And what he was doing back then was obviously fixing reel-to-reels and installing some of the very first projectors that were available to the market. But as time grew and as his business grew, so did HB, of course. We've grown to being considered to be a top 10 systems integrator in our field in the country. We're nationally ranked regularly. We'll do a little over $100 million in sales this year. Around 400 employees. So we're a good sized firm. But I say that humbly because we're not so big that we don't get real intimate with our customers. It's something that we take a lot of pride in, and that's why a few of us joined this morning. We develop teams around customers, and it's something that's really important to us, staying intimate and understanding, what it is that makes life better for you guys from a communication standpoint. Specific areas of specialty at HB. My group, the folks who I work with, Tom Wing, our group is the Unified Communication Sales Engineering team. So we have a team that's built out specifically to provide UC engineering and UC business practice for you. So that's all built around video conferencing, UC practice, mobile communications, desktop communications. This is what we do. It's our core area of specialty, and we spend each and every waking moment of the day concerned and worried about UC and video conferencing. We also have other groups within that larger organization that we work together with to provide a complete solution. The other groups are, AV systems engineering and design. So if you decide you want to put your screens up on the walls and you want to integrate that with some audio conferencing and a variety of other functions in the room, we have AV folks who will come in and help us with that. Broadcast applications. So if you decide you want to, get further involved in your streaming and your recording and take a closer look at how you deal with broadcasting some of your content, we have applications experts specific to those requirements. And then managed services. So if you decided at some point you wanted more of a hands-off type approach, or you needed some additional assistance, you didn't have the staff to manage video conferencing or telepresence, we could help you with that, with as little or as lot as you'd like. And live events. So I know Berklee does more than your share of beautiful, amazing live events. So HB has a whole division and a whole group that specializes in live events. So we do staging and lighting and, broadcast type audio on the fly. If you need somebody to come out and deliver a couple of large screens or a very big projection system or an audio enhancement system, we're available to do that. And we have a whole group that's built around dealing with live events. So, if you think about that, there's really, we think of those at HB as sort of our 6 pillars or the things that our customers have been asking us for a number of years. And, we, instead of just blending everybody together and having one giant package to hand to you, we continue to stand on the fact that we've built areas of expertise, specific areas of expertise. And that's what we do. So we come together as a group, but individually, we're quite strong. So on our team, in the UC engineering team, there are a few key tendencies that we stick to. They're sort of our rules of thumb, or they're sort of, if your solution doesn't meet these requirements, then frankly, it's probably not going to make it past phase 1 with my team. But you should know that as we get into the life-size applications and the solutions design that we responded to you folks with, really what drives that what's behind the scenes driving the key tendencies and helping us choose those products are really these simple drivers. One being a superior user experience. So if we can't provide you with really good video and really good audio that's better than other products, we won't do it. If there isn't a tangible and a recognizable ROI, if it isn't subjectively economical, we could show you telepresence systems that are amazing, that cost 6 figures, that, frankly, a lot of folks can't afford to deploy. So we do believe in keeping things affordable. And then simplified deployments really speak both to the end user, to the folks who are going to be in the room and using the equipment, and also the IT staff or the administrative staff who have to deploy these pieces of equipment and maintain them. So we do believe in an absolute simplified deployment. We think that deployments were overcomplicated for a number of years in video conferencing rooms, which led to a lack of adoption. So we believe the simpler and the easier and the more accessible we make the technology for you, the more it'll be used, the more you'll be able to recognize an ROI. So, when we talk about commonality and we talk about how do we create commonality in different sized environments and rooms, I understand that you're going to start with 2 boardrooms, but it's highly likely in time you'll want to build other spaces, small, medium, large. Today it's very popular in telepresence and in unified communications to build huddle spaces or small collaboration areas, places where folks can get together quickly, meet on video, spare themselves some travel, and move forward with their day. So I put a couple of pictures here just so you could see in your mind. Think about when we talk to you about creating commonality and creating consistency in environments. If you even look at these 3 pictures, right, there's a 4-seat table, a 7-seat table, and what a 8, 16, maybe a 17-seat table. But in each environment, you notice how they sort of all look the same? the user, whether they're coming into a 17-seat environment or they're coming into a 4-seat environment, should frankly feel or get the feel that these rooms or behaviors of environments are the same. And the more commonality that you can create, the better. So we'll help you with that, show you what drives behind that. So as we get into Life Size a little bit, I'm sort of excited to talk to you about Life Size. Life Size is an amazing product, but Life Size really does deal with a whole variety of applications that start at browser, literally being able to use a web browser. So if you guys wanted to join this meeting using Google Chrome or Internet Explorer, you can. So you can use WebRTC in a browser and just join. And before we hang up, maybe we'll have you test that and see if audio works through there. I bet it will. And then obviously moving up the chain from mobility, Life Size supports desktop, supports, telepresence, individual systems, larger spaces, individual spaces, and I'll show you the products from Life Size that we use to support those environments. The other thing I want to talk to you guys about is, as we were setting up the meeting, you heard me say to you 4, 5, 6 times, right? Hey, just dial me at 106-533 at lifesizecloud.com, right? 106-533 at lifesizecloud.com. So I was able to tell 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people the same address, and I wasn't really concerned with what device you were using. So I never once asked, are you using a legacy video conferencing system, or are you using a desktop or a mobile device? It didn't really matter, right? That's because we're using a virtual meeting room, or we've created a consistent experience by using that nomenclature. So with Life Size, we can have as many virtual meeting rooms as we'd like, and we can also create individual call access. So just be able to dial me, right? You can dial me at abasset at lifesizecloud.com from any of these applications that you see in front of you here, right? And that sort of unifies the workflow, or unifies the experience for folks in a way where it allows you to do both ad hoc and rendezvous type meetings very, very easily. So what I do an awful lot throughout the day, as you adopt video and you start using video more often, you'll find that the constraint really is, the traditional way was to hand out an IP address, right? That's how most people communicated with video conferencing, is they kept a directory with a stack of IP addresses in them, and you had to somehow make sense of those over time, right? You might have 50, or I have an Excel with 100 IP addresses in them. So if you're not keeping that up to date all the time, it can be absolutely brutal. This type of workflow using Life Size and Life Size Cloud removes all of that difficulty. Now you have an actual common directory. You could see me, I can see you. We can tell if either of us are online. So if I've logged in, you would know that. You'd see a green light. If I'm not logged in, you'd see a gray light. You'd know it's not available. Same thing for your rooms. So if your rooms are online, you would know it, right? There's presence. So even at home, Giles, what I like to do a lot of times, because I end up playing concierge a lot of times at my company, right? So often there'll be critical calls, and somebody will call me and say, hey, can I use this? Or, I want to use these rooms. Whenever there's critical calls, it's great because I can actually, from my home or from a mobile device or my iPad, I can jump on to Life Size Cloud. I can take a quick look at my systems. I know if they're online. I know if they're healthy. So it's a really helpful way of working. So let's talk a little bit about a couple of the products with Life Size. And if you guys have questions as I'm rambling away, please don't hesitate to jump right in there and interject. You might find some of this information on the products interesting, but I really do want to be able to collaborate with you if you want to ask questions as we go. But I want to talk to you about Life Size Phone, Life Size Cameras, the Life Size Icon series systems, and Life Size Cloud, as well as one of the applications available in a stack that provides some functionality in Life Size Cloud. But I'm going to take you through that in just a moment. First and foremost, audio is it really does all start with audio. How is my audio being delivered to you right now? Did you end up using the mobile device, or are you using the phone, or which?
We have a Polycom conference phone.
Polycom conference phone. How's the quality on it? I'm just curious. I mean, it seems okay?
Yeah, it sounds like telephone quality.
Sounds like telephone quality. Yeah, well, we joined via a trunk, so I apologize for that, but you ended up joining via a telephone trunk. So Life Size by Design will give you sort of a PSTN feel to that audio trunk. But I guess, I'll just mention, you don't see any microphones on me. You don't see, we're not tethered. You don't have to have a lavalier. There's no tabletop mic. I'm using a life-size phone. And life-size phone does just an amazing job at capturing circular audio, and it creates an aural radius around the table that frankly allows you to just behave in a hands-free mode with echo cancellation, and it has a really strong noise reduction algorithm. So if there was any HVAC noise in the room, if there was, the buzzing of a fan, it would hear that for about 15 seconds and realize that sound's not going to go away, and it will eliminate that sound for you. So it does an amazing job at that. And it's expandable.
Are they generally transportable, or is there any port configuration, or you just plug them into a standard jack?
So these typically, Bruce, they go with the video codec typically. So you typically use one of these phones with a life-size video system. However, they can be used as a standalone phone. So they can be registered to a SIP-based phone system and become its own audio device. But typically these go with the video conferencing system, wherever a video conferencing system is going to be. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You also see on the front of it, right? You see that cool touchpad, that blue interface that's there? So, I'll call attention to that because this is where Life-Size really, in my opinion, one of the areas in which Life-Size differentiates from the bunch is they've created the most simple, easy-to-use interface for video conferencing that you can imagine. It's really based a lot around kind of how Apple works with the iPhone a bit. The 6 most common things that you might possibly want to do on a video conference are presented to you right up front, right? So they tell you, hey, do you want to make a video call, audio or video call? You just press this button. Would you like to see your content? So even if you're not in a call, you might want to plug in a laptop or a mobile device or something and see content up on your screen. So presentation is put right there, so you can always see content if you want. There's a record button in the upper right-hand side there. So if you walked into a meeting and you started a call and just wanted to hit the record button, well, there you go. You'd be recording your conference. And then there's some system information. So if you needed your system info, you could. You have a mute button there. And then it looks like a schedule button, right? So if you wanted to see any other scheduled calls that were available. Now, there's another palette to this. So you can swipe this and you can look at it, and it changes as needs change. So like right now, for example, in my call, I have a button on my phone that says layouts. So if I want to just quickly switch my layouts and I want to see just you guys, I can. And if I want to see just my content, I can, right? And if I want to come back and see you and the content, I can. So it's really cool. It's a great way to work, really, really simple. It's allowed me as a trainer, as somebody who teaches people how to use video systems on a day-to-day basis. It's made my job super, super easy. So I can literally have somebody up and running on a life-size system in 10 minutes or less. And I mentioned these are expandable. So if you put one of these in the center of the table and you decide you want to put a mic, you have a very long table, maybe it's a 20-seater or something, you want to put a mic pod down one end and a mic pod down the other end with the phone in the center. Life-Size has some beautiful digital mic pods that do that, and they plug right into the phone, creating a nice, clean design for you. Life-Size icon. Bruce, let's get right into, right? So this is where the phone meets the video system, right? So Life-Size icon is the entry-level video system that you could use for telepresence. And I'll show it to you. It's unique because it's all built in. It's an all-in-one unit. You'll see on the back of the unit there's 2 cables. One is an input and one is an output one is the display out and one is content in, right? And then there's a USB port there for serviceability. The small port that's next to the data jack there is for audio. Then there's a data jack and power. So literally, to plug one of these in, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 cables in total. And you can have a telepresence experience literally as if it's glass to glass. So these are amazing systems. There's really no other system like this out there. It's truly the all-in-one, easy to deploy system. So this will also work with life-size phone. So that's a unique thing, Bruce, where I'm seeing a lot of people actually use these in small huddle spaces, but they like to use the phone because the touch panel, again, they like to create that commonality in the different environments. And the audio is really, really good with the phone, so it just levels everything out. That's life-size Icon 400. Life-size Icon. Go ahead. Say again.
Is something like the 400 integratable with a control system?
Not really. So that's a limitation, right? If you look back at the Icon 400, there really is no API integration. There's no RS-232 or 9-pin controller. Now, there is a USB jack on there. So one could infer that we could use that for RS-232, but it'd still only be really basic commands available to a small Icon 400. For you to actually control a system, I'd rather you look at this. This is Icon 600 or Icon 800. And I'll take you through these two. So these are the two models that, frankly, you'd want to consider if you were going to use it with a Crestron or an AMX type control system. So what these models add is they add dual display output. They add dual inputs, right? So you have a primary camera input, and then you also have the HD input for display or for presentation. They had a standard microphone input is added here as well. So if you wanted to bring a DSP, so in a controlled environment, typically in a touch panel AV controlled environment, you'll often have a DSP or a digital signal processor for audio to control microphones and speakers. So you could tether that in using your microphone in here and your speaker out. Those are the important things here. And then where it says USB 3.0 on the far right-hand side, those are fully compliant to be RS-232 and 9-pin control ports. So we just put a small adapter on there that gives you 9-pin, and we can fully control that box with the API, Giles. And then I'll show you Icon 800, right? One more step up the line. Icon 800 is a fully integratable box. So this is sort of the integrator's friend. If you're really looking to build a control system and something with more than one camera, any system with more than one camera, this is the box I'm going to suggest. So this box has 4 discrete high-definition inputs. You'll see them over on the left-hand side there. 1, 2, 3, 4. They all look DVI, but those are switchable to HDMI, right? So whether it's DVI or HDMI. And then you have your 2 outputs for display. Then there's a whole block there. That green block is all audio. Those are Phoenix connectors. So again, in a control, in an AV control environment, you're typically going to have a DSP with stereo output and input. These are great connectors for that, and our AV integration team will thank you for choosing Icon 800 in that environment. And it's and it's rack mountable. I mean, it's a great box for a real controlled environment. So I can come back to the endpoints a little bit too. I know we only have about 10 or 15 more minutes, so I'll move through a couple of more of these slides, and then we'll get right into your questions a bit. But I really do want to drill on this piece for a minute, because I think, as we talk about life-size cloud, as we drill into how do we connect these units together, right? The part of this that most video conferencing companies aren't going to want to tell you is the costs associated with the infrastructure that's required to do what we're doing right now are really extensive, right? So when you start to build an infrastructure for video conferencing, even to support just a couple of units, now granted, they can call each other on campus. So if you have a private network, you wouldn't need much infrastructure at all. 2 video conferencing systems can call each other by private IP. But the minute you want to bring somebody in from outside of your private network, right, you start to have to begin to build some infrastructure to support that. And that's when you look at this sort of the life-size UVC platform, life-size has an answer for that either on-premise or in the cloud. So on-premise, you could build any of these blocks as you see in front of you, and you could choose to privatize any of these services. Where it says access, right? Think about firewall traversal. Or where it says video center, think about recording and streaming, right? That's another block that you may want to put on-prem as opposed to in the cloud. Where it says clear C there, that's video desktop, video engine, and multi-point. Those are the ability to host a multi-point call. Those are all applications that fit into an infrastructure environment that you would have to manage and deal with yourselves if you wanted to provide mobile or desktop video access, directory, LDAP integration, naming, common directories, those types of things. So LifeSize, again, allows you to mix and match and create a hybrid environment. So in your environment where you may only have 2 video conferencing systems to start, and you want to add streaming and recording, you could add just one application. You could add LifeSize Video Center for streaming and recording and let the cloud handle everything else for firewall traversal and for naming and for gatekeeper. So if you look at LifeSize Video Center, right, think of LifeSize Video Center as, a YouTube environment for Berklee. So at Berklee College of Music, you may want to give access to LifeSize Video Center to different departments. Maybe Bruce has his teams that he wants to dole out and have different channels. Perhaps Elaine has her teams that she, you can have as many of these different individual channels that you see here in front of you as you'd like. So these could be classes, they could be departments, however it is you want to organize your YouTube environment. And ultimately what this system is doing is it's capturing the video that you're creating with LifeSize. So when you walk in, you hit the record button, right, on a video conferencing system, the video is showing up over here. And you're able to come on here and log in with your credentials and see your videos, see your channels, and you can offer as much access or as little access to each individual user as you'd like. But it's a great application. And again, think of it as YouTube for video. And that's really what I had to share with you. I mean, I don't want to go too much further on that without answering your questions about the endpoints and about the systems. I know you must have more questions about usability and what we would suggest, the different cameras, those types of things. But I can answer your questions about LifeSize Cloud or anything else that's on your mind.
So can you do, if we wanted to, could we just do a cloud thing and have meetings like we're having now here with you? So just get a LifeSize. And what would be the licensing model for something like that?
Go ahead, Eric. I'll let you answer that, please.
Sure. So we have actually two layers of pricing. We have the enterprise license, which is essentially a bucket where you're not managing named users, and the other model is a named user licensing model where it's, for example, an endpoint would be a single user that's registered, for example. So if you bought, let's say, a 25-pack seat of users, you could have up to 25 registered users using the system at any time. With the enterprise, it's much more flexible and also comes with some additional, since it's designed for the enterprise, comes with some additional benefits to it. One big one is that it has 24/7 support for the enterprise. And it comes with an obsession, what we call a customer obsession team. I think we need to change that name because it's somewhat fatal attraction, but just understand that we have that. And then it also opens up to, based upon the size of the organization, it allows everybody to have access to video, whether those be students, whether those be endpoints. The enterprise is really designed to allow organizations. So, for example, me, as Alex was saying, I have my own number to my own, what we call, virtual meeting room. But unlike many of the other competitors in the space, those virtual meeting rooms, you'd never just dial into them because you don't know what's going on inside of them. So in this environment, it's very much like, think of it as your phone calls. If I dial in, or Alex is dialed in on 2 devices right now, I can ignore Alex coming into the meeting. I have to accept him to come in. But I could also bring Alex right into a call and then, disconnect Alex once I got whatever I needed from Alex, which happens a lot. So, from the licensing standpoint, you're also going to get benefits on the enterprise for new functionality that's coming out. So, what he was showing you with the streaming and recording, we're actually adding recording to the cloud with no additional charge coming over the summer. So, what you're seeing on the cloud side is most organizations, especially higher eds, don't want to manage hardware. I'm sure you guys are in the same boat, right? If you can put it in and use it as essentially a billable service, it's very the cost is you can plan the cost over and over. You know it's not going to change unless you have an increase in capacity. You need an increase in capacity, so it's very predictable. And most organizations like that. They also like the fact that the life-size cloud that you're looking at here is sitting on IBM soft layer. So it is a world-class NOC that's global. So I know you have a number of offices around the world. It is fully redundant and it is a life-size product. It's not being resold by, let's say, HB or somebody else, which they're charged with managing that.
Can you share that license which you just went over with us?
Sure. So enterprise is essentially sold based upon the number of users in the organization, and it's priced out at 20% utilization. So because we realize that 100% of the individuals in an organization aren't going to be on video all the time. And then the named user model is essentially buying a bucket of users, and that can start at 10 and go up from there. So the enterprise starts at 100 users and moves up from 100 users up. So the enterprise is really designed to have allow a lot more access without running around, running Bob down in the parking lot to get his named user license off of Life-Size Cloud. So there's the named user model, which is really, stricted around, as a named user, I can use my iPhone. If I have an endpoint like I have, I can use my, it's all tied to one user, but I can have multiple points of access. So I can use my laptop, I can use my iPad, I can use my iPhone, I can use my endpoint. So all of that is considered one user. Now, if I have a dedicated conference room with just an endpoint, that's considered a single user. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So if you had it,
do we have the? Sorry,
go ahead.
I just wanted. Do we have that licensing information on the cloud? If not, can you send it to us?
Probably I can send it to you.
Yeah, you probably don't, because we just launched the enterprise licensing about a month and a half ago.
Yep. Well, you have, Elaine. So what I responded with, Elaine, there's two entry level packages from Life-Size. There's a 10 user and a 25 user. So I'm sure in my RFI, I'm pulling up the template right now so we can look at it. I'm quite certain I responded using the 10 user or the 25 user. But as Eric mentioned, they recently introduced this particular enterprise category of products. So if it's something that you're interested in, by all means, you can see on the response that I had sent you guys that it had 10 users and 25.
And what I want to make note on, go ahead, Elaine. Sorry.
I was just going to say, so just to make note, so when we started the RFI, the focus was on the Boston to Valencia, but obviously, as you mentioned, it isn't just about, there's going to be, everyone around campus will potentially want to use, video and screen sharing, and so we're having a broader view of, it'd be nice to find a solution that does it all. So
I understand.
That's why we're very interested now. So things change as we go along. The focus was on the Boston to Valencia, but clearly we use Google Hangout, and that might be something we continue using, but we wanted to see what the other options were for maybe a little bit more, I don't know, either improved performance or something that just evaluating what we're up against.
I'll say, Elaine, real quick, the biggest difference when you move from like a Google Hangout to a Life-Size, where things change, right, is with Life-Size, you're able to have that Google Hangouts environment. So we use it a lot in that sort of same workflow as you're using Hangouts, where you have quick ad hoc calls, you bring people together and collaborate. So that will all continue with Life-Size. Where it gets better is that you can add some of these small telepresence systems where video is really important. So there might be a classroom or a collab space or whatever. And that telepresence system now seamlessly integrates into that Google Hangout environment, right? And then you can also add better appliances like the audio devices and some of the other things. But go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd also say a lot of, I think, identity, especially in video, is a big thing. So giving folks an identity. Every time that a user, whether they're a guest or a named user, i.e. named user, or, a person that is in the system, they always have an identity. So, for example, I have a partner that doesn't own, is just using the desktop application that you guys have as a guest, and he calls me. He has an identity to me, and I have an identity to him. And that number never changes. He's always where he is, and I'm always where I am. So if I get a phone call on my endpoint, I can choose to answer it on my phone or my iPad if those things are online. I would also say this. With the solutions that we're putting forth on the cloud, the ability to have the ad hoc meetings, as we talked about, very transient types. Students, I don't know if my daughter, she's 6, will ever be able to sit down and actually watch a whole movie. It's just the way she is, right? It's off to the next thing. And I don't know if she'll ever be able to write in full letters either, full words. So the idea with our solution is, and it's very key, is that if you look at from a cost standpoint, we offer per user, and let's just go back to that 10 users license that Alex has proposed. Each one of those users gets 25 ports of utilization. So if you take those 10 users, I now have 250 ports available to my users. Does that make sense? So if I was to come in to
20.
Go ahead.
25 people can call in. So if I had a license, 25 people could call into my room.
You and 24. You and 24 of your friends.
24.
Yeah, and then that's actually expanding. Right now, it's in beta. We're actually moving that to 40. Now, what I would say though is once you get past a certain, you don't want. Past a certain point, it becomes very hard to manage. Some of our competitors, I think, will support 100. Can you imagine trying to support 100 individuals on a video call? So, from that perspective,
you want to go to a streaming, yeah.
Solution.
Not that we don't do meetings with 100. We do meetings with many hundreds of folks together. I do them fairly often, but it's more of a one-way, right? You're going to want everybody on mute, obviously. Usually a stream makes more sense when you get up into that kind of volume. So that's where you integrate streaming into that workflow.
So when we talk about cloud is that... I'm sorry?
No, I was going to say, I know we're low on time. Could I ask a couple of just a quick other integration questions? With your capture and your YouTube analogy, are those assets available outside of that architecture? In other words, could we utilize those in our digital asset management system as a Berklee-owned asset?
Yeah. So Video Center is
another format.
Sure. So Video Center, and just so you guys understand our background, our executives, I know you guys are big Apple users. So if you look at our environment, essentially, for example, if you look at the remote control, that says Apple, right? Because our executive, one of our bigger executives actually came from Apple. So the Video Center is able to be on-prem. We actually prefer, especially if you're looking at things that you want more control. And to be honest, right now the cloud isn't supportive of a streaming capability. The recording is coming over the summer, but the Video Center would be the YouTube, and those are absolutely embeddable into other applications. So if you have a learning management system, for example, it does have are you guys Blackboard or Sakai, Moodle? What are you?
We developed it in-house using Moodle platform. The platform is Moodle.
Yeah, so that may be more of a manual process from grabbing a URL and putting it in, but not everything necessarily needs to go into a Moodle environment. Some organizations think everything lives in a Moodle environment. I don't know where you guys fall on that, but it is.
I was just curious if those video assets, can we just get the files?
Yeah, can we get
that's what I was more on. Can we get them
absolutely.
QuickTime
Absolutely. They're actually Adobe, the new Adobe version, which is I forget the acronym for it, but it's not FLV, it's not SWF, it's the new mobile version of Adobe.
Thank you.
Yep. And that can, as I said, that's an appliance or it can be a VM. So it's really up to you guys, and that gives you some security of owning it yourself as well, and tying it to Active Directory, etc.
I have a quick question. We don't have to go into it because I only have a few minutes. But when you talked about one thing we don't do here is we don't really have a chargeback system. So I'd be curious to see that pricing model again. And I know with the named hosts and all that. But is there anything that you have that's sort of unlimited offering for across the campus for all students? That it would be a flat pricing?
Well, that's a good question. It's something that we're working on. I guess the question I would have is if we were to look at Berklee College of Music as a whole, let's say the whole entity, not just Boston, what would be a good accurate number of, students, employees, and staff?
So, what would be 1,000 staff?
We have about 1,000 staff and faculty, and just around 6,000 total.
Yeah, you have like 4,400 bodies here, another 100. Yeah, we think 5,000 for licensing at the minimum.
Yeah.
And of course, they would not be using it, and that's why I know you do your named hosts and different systems like
right.
that. But
So,
I only have a minute, but I'd be curious to do that.
Would we be safe with like a 5,000 user? Would that cover kind of Berklee as a whole?
I'm sure it would, yes.
Yeah, it would. Again, we know this is going to over provision you, Giles, like completely. Elaine, we know that. So Life Size is going to go back and they're going to take an estimation based upon what they think you're going to use for usage, and they'll probably start with around 20% of that, and they'll begin to sort of build a model based on that. They know they're not going to enable 5,000 folks to use, but we do have to have some.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say, Elaine, is even if you guys started with the 25, that's always something that, since it's a cloud offering, like today, if you were to go and buy all the hardware with the expectation you're going to have 5,000 people potentially using video, you'll go bankrupt. The idea, though, here is that you can actually start with 25, let's say 25 seats, build the adoption, and then continue to add on that if you do choose. So you have some scalability in that.
Can this be behind single sign-on too?
Not yet. So
we
single sign-on is it's in the master plan. Yeah, there is single sign-on, and Sam will in the master plan for future. It's coming very soon to a theater near us.
Okay.
Sam,
looks like we're out of time. Can I ask you one other question?
Elaine, I'll make the offer to anybody here in the room. Greg, if you guys want to try this and use it yourselves, I'm glad to put you on our portal for a lengthy trial. So if you guys want to just use Life Size Cloud a bit, kick the tires, and give it a good run, send me an email, and I'll put you on my portal. And you, Bruce, by all means, if you guys want to use Life Size Cloud, I'm happy to enable you, and you guys can let me know. Yeah, you try it using your home network, use Berklee.
So Elaine, you had a question?
Yeah, real quick, when you send us the video, can you edit out the very beginning when we were trying to set up? Is that easy to do or no?
Sure.
Never
Yeah. I'll trim the front.
Okay, good, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
very
Take
much.
care. Bye now.
That was-
Bye.